Hello and welcome to this session of Groundbreakers Live. I'm your host Javed Mohammed, and we're very honored to have with us Nikhil Nanivadekar. I hope I got that almost right. Nikhil, welcome.
Hi Javed, how are you?
Good, thank you. So Nikhil is a Java champion, and he's presenting at the J Champions Conference with his session title "Getting Started with Kafka." So let's get straight into it, Nikhil. What is Kafka?
Kafka is one of the technologies with which we actually transfer data, and it's a fairly mature technology, and it's used quite heavily in the industry. So that's why the session is getting started with Kafka, so you actually know what Kafka is.
Okay, all right. So what problem is Kafka solving that was there?
Kafka mainly solves the data transportation problem. Uh, what Kafka allows you to do is send like publish data once and have multiple consumers consume the data by decoupling the producers and the consumers. And uh, it makes the the producing and the consumption process completely asynchronous.
Okay. So is that why it's really a good, this is good for streaming services?
Yeah, pretty much for streaming services, for like I said, data transformation. The interesting part about Kafka is because the producer and the consumer are decoupled, the producer can go on producing at their own rate, and the consumers can consume at their own rate. So the producer does not have to wait for a particular message to be consumed before sending the next one. So you
Mhm.
can have like just a stream of data being pushed to Kafka topics, and the consumers can consume at their own rate, and both the systems stay in place. Additionally, Kafka also is pretty resilient by just having copies of data across the cluster. So it's sort of an interesting technology. And like to know more, I should make a plug
Attend
for
your
my own
session.
session. Like to know more, make sure you join Getting
Yeah, don't
Started
worry.
with Kafka.
Don't worry. I'm not gonna make you rehash your whole presentation, but we just want to capture at least some of the highlights.
Yeah. So in the presentation, basically what I do is I start out with the basics, and it's a completely hands-on presentation. I don't use any slide decks or anything. I explain each concept as like just by typing it out and then demoing it live, because I believe that seeing a live demo is much more impactful than just reading a few slides. So the way I go about is like there are five important concepts in Kafka,
Uh-huh.
and I cover those five important concepts with a live demo, and I
And,
explain
and,
each concept one after
and
the
can
other.
you just again, sorry, I'm bugging you here, but what are those five concepts? Or share with us a couple of them.
Sure. So the first and foremost is zookeeper and its importance in the Kafka topology.
Okay.
Then what we call as the Kafka brokers or servers. Then Kafka topics and Kafka producers, so the ones which actually create the data, and Kafka consumers, the ones which actually consume the data. So I cover these five, important concepts at pretty much at a glance at an extremely high level,
Mhm.
but I go in depth enough so that folks actually understand what they are.
All right. So when I'm thinking of like real-time applications, I mean, this could be for, I don't know, IoT, it could be for retail applications, it could be for banking. I mean, I guess it's a very kind of a broad range of places where this can be used. Are you seeing it being deployed in some areas more than others, or what's the take of it?
So I've been using Kafka for the past, I would say, 4 years or so. Yeah, at least 4 years.
Uh-huh.
And the biggest problem that Kafka solves, as I said, is the data transportation.
Uh-huh.
So previously, the way data used to be transferred was either by sending feed files, like a producer sends a feed file, like a consumer to a consumer. The consumer actually gets the data out of the file, or by making REST-based calls. But essentially, the feed file had a problem where if you had to send the exact same file to multiple places, the producer had to produce those many files and push it to those many consumers.
Mm.
Uh, The REST-based approach had a problem because it became more of a synchronous mechanism of data delivery. I mean, I use Kafka for example, in order to synchronize the data across two data centers, where one is the primary and the other one is the secondary, like
Mm,
a DR
okay.
data center. So because Kafka like allows the asynchronous messaging or the asynchronous data transportation mechanism, the primary side just goes on, like, pushing data to a Kafka topic, and the secondary side goes on consuming. And because of its near real time nature, you always have the secondary side completely, like it becomes like an active passive backup with near real time data replication.
Okay. And I'm just kind of curious, like, when you compare and contrast asynchronous versus synchronous communication, is it which one is harder to implement as a developer?
Oh, both.
Uh-huh,
It's each one has its pros and cons.
uh-huh,
The interesting point about asynchronous communication, like I said, is because both the systems are completely, disengaged. They are decoupled. I said decoupled. That's the right word.
mhm,
Because they're both decoupled, if the consumer has a problem, the producer does not have to wait for it. If a producer has a problem, it does not impact the consumer. It doesn't bring down both the sides. That sort of like helpful. From a synchronized perspective, you do get data pretty much like you're guaranteed in a transaction, like a close to a transactional way. So because the only time the producer will move on is when the data is consumed, when you're in a synchronous data consumption mechanism.
okay. Well, it sounds like a real exciting presentation. I really encourage all the viewers to check it out. I have to ask you one last question, and it's got nothing to do with Kafka. What's in your background here? What are those mountain ranges and where are they?
So these are Grand Tetons out in Wyoming, and it's I'm so I love hiking. Like that's one of
Uh-huh,
my favorite hobbies. And um, if you see at the very top of the peak, like right
uh-huh,
here,
uh-huh.
uh, so out there, so that is something called as the paintbrush divide on the Grand Teton range,
Uh-huh.
and that is the longest hike that I have done.
How long is
The
that?
entire, yeah.
How long or how high is that?
So I don't remember the exact elevation gain that you do,
Uh-huh.
but I think you're close to like at the top. I think you're close to like 10,000 or like 11,000
Wow.
feet. Um, but the entire hike round trip is close to 21 miles, and it took my wife and myself about 12 to like 14 hours to complete, because
Wow.
it's super long, and it's strenuous. It's one of the best hikes that I've done. And you get a small window to do the hike because of weather.
Uh-huh. Wow. So it seems like you have a lot of stamina, and maybe that's the thing that's helped to prepare you for the world of Kafka. Nikhil, thank you so much for sharing and all the best.
Thanks a lot, Javed. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.
Bye.